Hello and welcome to the online hearing loss awareness induction. In today's session we're going to cover the following: good communication tactics that you can use with your residents, how to take out and put in hearing aids properly, and how to change hearing aid batteries. All of these subjects and more will be covered in more detail in the full course. But before we go on to tactics, we need to understand why. Why do we have to have special skill in order to communicate effectively? Surely if we put some hearing aids in, the resident will be able to hear brilliantly. Sadly not. To help us to understand why, we're going to play a conversation as heard between two different people in a restaurant where you have a moderate hearing loss. So, how much of that did you get? Did you understand everything? Anything? Why not? As we get older, we tend to lose our higher pitches first. That makes it harder to hear very soft consonants such as t, th, sh. To make it a little bit easier, most people will shout. So what we're going to do is play the track again a little bit louder and see if it helps. Was that any better? No? Why? Well, when you amplify sound, you also amplify the distortion. That's what shouting does. Let's try this track again. This time we're going to remove this distortion and let's see what they actually said. Oh, by the way, Sarah's agreed to our little trip later this month.
Oh, where did you say you were thinking of going?
Corfu.
Oh, very nice. Stanley and I went there a few years back. Gorgeous weather and great food. Whereabouts?
Not sure yet. We looked at a few places, but there's so much choice. Where did you two stay? So you understand now. It was a man and a woman having a conversation about going on holiday. Now here's the really interesting thing. You don't actually hear with your ears, you hear with your brain. Your brain is trying to make sense of all of the sound coming in, what you need to pay attention to and what not. It will recognize when someone is calling your name, for example. But if it doesn't understand what's being said, it gets very, very confused. Now, let's play the muffled track again, because now that you understand what they're talking about, your brain may make more sense of the muffled track. See, isn't that amazing? Now, background noise can make it even harder for a resident with hearing loss to work out what's being said. Also things like speakers with different accents to the resident, if they're mumbling and not facing a resident, all of this makes it harder for the resident to understand what's being said. It also means the resident requires a lot of concentration on their part. Now, have you ever thought a resident had selective hearing? It's more about actually how alert they are and how much they're able to focus. If a resident, let's say, is early in the morning and they've had a good sleep and they're feeling alert, they'll be able to have a long and involved conversation with you. After a heavy lunch and they're feeling tired, perhaps anything more tricky than, do you want a cup of tea, might be a bit more challenging. So let's look at things that you can do to make it easier to be understood. To make it easier for Ethel to hear me, I'm going to turn that radio off. I also need to think about how close I am, maybe about 3 feet or 1 meter. This is ideal. Also, I don't want to be standing up. otherwise I'm looming over her, which can be a bit scary. So I'm going to kneel down, which will make it a bit easier. Next, I'm going to speak a little slower than I normally do. This will give Ethel more time to see the movement, the shapes of my lips. How are you today, Ethel?
I'm fine, thank you.
However,
don't speak too slowly.
if you speak too slowly, it can come across a bit patronising. So just speak a little slower, like I'm speaking now. You'll find you'll naturally speak just a little bit clearer. Another thing to think about is the lighting. If there's a bright light behind you, then your face is in shadow. Your lips and your face will not be seen easily. So where possible, either move or turn on a light like this. It's going to make it much easier for Ethel to see my face, especially if she lip reads. The last thing to think about is gestures. So, do you want a cup of tea, Ethel?
Yes, please.
See how easy that was?